What up, Cucks? It's your boy, The Hater, and somewhere down the line, everyone forgot, but it was AEW All In. Due to the scheduling disparity, because this event takes place in England, it was during the day, I believe, so I completely forgot about it. And then I Googled it and spoiled the results. So my friend, he invited me over for something else later in the day, and we ended up kind of like watching parts of it, because he had recorded it. He does the VHS tapes. You know, your boy, I'm going to buy myself a VHS player, but they're like $300 now, so it's kind of weird. I don't have any VHS tapes left, but I always thought VHS was awesome. But anyways, I digress. Let's get to it. I watched part of it, but I don't really want to talk about the event. The event was what it was. I personally thought it was a little bit overrated. There's a few things that I did like. So, for example, Christian Cage, he had a match earlier in the night, which was like, in my opinion, almost disrespectful. Because I'm thinking to myself, like, what the hell? Why is that Christian Cage, who should be a star in this shit company, why is he relegated to, like, not the pre-show, but he may as well be in the pre-show, you know? It's a 4-way ladder match for the trios titles. It's like, first of all, I don't even think the trios titles are worthwhile enough for someone to, like, go after them. But nevertheless, that's what happened. And we've got all this stuff happening here, and Christian Cage is involved with these jobbers. But then things were made better when Christian Cage ended up winning the Casino Gauntlet match, you know, which was okay, right? But the better idea here is just that, like, they value the fact that Christian was there kicking some ass, you know. With all this being said, and in this match, you know, there's a lot of, like, bigger names, you know, like Okada, Nigel McGuinness, Mark Briscoe was in there, Adam Page, like all the mid-carders and stuff like that, basically. But we also had like a you know, debuting Ricochet, Zack Sabre, you know, obviously Christian, Luchasaurus, etc. Right? So that was pretty cool. I thought it was like probably like the match that I found the most exciting. Also, just because like it's like, oh, one guy can lose the trios title, which is irrelevant, and now become the number one contender for, you know, the world title. So that's pretty tight. We had the mandatory Will Ospreay MJF match. I'm kind of over this already. Like, the AEW International Championship is not important enough, in my opinion. But obviously, there's two things to talk about. Number one, for some reason, the women's title was like early on in the show, while the Sasha Banks title was later on. I'm not sure if this is a, you know, I know they're not positioning it to be like the more important title, but it's unclear at this point, right? Because Sasha Banks is obviously a bigger star than Toni Storm and than, you know, Mariah May. It was good to see Mariah May win. You know, I like Mariah May. I think she's a good character. Overall, like, a lot of the stuff was, like, decent in the sense that, like, they had some okay matches. But my bigger concern was, like, there were so many matches where it was, like, 100 people in a match. You know, in the pre-show, too, because my friend taped it all. And it's like, you got all this stuff in there in the pre-show up in this piece. And it's like, I get it. You want to show everybody that you have, but, you know, you're in England. You got to fly everybody to England. Like, you know, like, why is, like, Action Andretti, you know what I mean, being flown there? Why are Darius and Dante Martin, also known as Top Flight, why are they there, you know? But whatever, it is what it is. I'd rather have, like, you know, pre-show matches that are fewer people and more well-developed. But that's a preference thing, right? I can understand why, like, if you're going to pay a certain amount of money in England, you might want to see as many wrestlers as possible, especially since, like, they don't get to come to England, you know, more than once a year. So that's kind of nice, you know, like, I kind of enjoy that. But, you know, despite that, it's just, like, there's too much going on, and it's unclear who's important and who's not, right? So you have, like, for example, like, the Von Erichs, right? Like, the, you know, the new Von Erichs, obviously, right? And it's like, are they important? Like, I don't know, where do they rank? It's like, you don't really see them on TV. So, like, what's their logic here? You know, like, clearly the tag team that matters is the Young Cucks, you know, and they had their match with FTR, which is like, at this point, this is becoming the new John Cena, Randy Orton, where it's like every pay-per-view, these assholes have some sort of interaction. But anyways, it is what it is. The takeaway here was Daniel Bryan beat Swerve Strickland. And actually, after that, when I went home, I went online and I saw a video. It was like a like press conference type of thing, where Daniel Bryan, I didn't watch the whole thing because, why? What's the point? Daniel Bryan is obviously like nearing the end of his career anyways. So he's going to go to WWE, I'm sure. So this was a big mistake, in my opinion, to give him the title. It's honestly a little bit weird because it's like, Swerve Strickland is an indie darling and he's a former WWE guy. But the way that he's being portrayed in AEW is that he's an AEW guy, right? Like, he was the head, essentially, of Team AEW at the pay-per-view. He was the world champion. It's like AEW is where he's shining. So, like, if, God forbid, Swerve Strickland were to die or retire tomorrow, right, I feel like he would go down as an AEW guy, right? So that's not necessarily, like, true or a fact, but just it's a feeling, right? And with all that in mind, it's like, you took it away from this guy, basically, to give it to, the Kirkland version of John Cena, which is all that Daniel Bryan really is, right? He's just another John Cena, this idea that people have, because people have these weird-ass ideas where it's like, they're like, oh, I hate Cena, but I love Daniel Bryan because Daniel Bryan can wrestle. And it's like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like what? What do you mean he can wrestle? He still does like 3 moves. But anyways, I digress. That's not here nor there. Like, I have to give some respect to good old Daniel Bryan because he is putting on a match, but I couldn't help but think it's a little bit weird because, this was all on the same card, right? So we had, like, in this match, we had Daniel Bryan essentially achieving what he described in the press conference as the greatest moment of his career, which is an outright lie, and it's borderline disrespectful because, like, I understand he was like, I wrestled in front of my daughter and she remembers the first match that she remembers seeing me live because she didn't remember the other one where she saw him live. And they also he has a son, apparently, I think. He said that, like, it's the first time his son has seen him wrestle. And, that's interesting. Like, good for him. Like, I ain't got nothing against that, That's, like, that's interesting, right? Like, good for him. It's a moment for him. And I understand that. And, I'm not personally offended, of course, because it's at the end of the day, it's Daniel Bryan's fucking life. He can do whatever the hell he wants up in this bitch. But the reality is what the reality is. And the reality is that WrestleMania 30th, right, where he didn't beat Swerve Strickland, who's an NXT jobber. He beat, like, 3 legends at a WrestleMania with a 0 on it, like a WrestleMania 30. And he had that moment, which I know it was contrived and it was bullshit, but for that Connor, the kid that died from cancer or whatever, that was a big moment for him. And Daniel Bryan presented that as like a great moment, right? Now, I understand, obviously, I'm sure he felt bad when Connor the Crusher died, right? But Connor is not his own child, so of course he loves his children more. And, he's more excited that his children are seeing him win, right? Versus, like, some kid who's just a fan of his. But, like, it does cheapen that moment a little bit, right? Because that was presented as, like, the undisputed highlight of Daniel Bryan's career. And now he basically says that, like, the greatest moment of his career is winning the AEW title, right? And he pretty much pisses on the legacy that was created for him at WrestleMania 30 with Connor the Crusher. You know what I mean? Rest in peace, little man. But that's up to him. He's the one who decides that. Now, I also didn't like it because I suspect that it's a complete lie, right? I think he's going to quit, and eventually he's going to have another meaningless match at WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan has been in an inordinate amount of significant WrestleMania matches. Even if you count, like, when he jobbed out to Kofi Kingston, or he had the match with Shane McMahon and Owens and Zayn. Like, these are significant matches, and it's like I feel like he's got one more in him. But again, as I said, I couldn't help but think one thing, and this made me, like, like in a way, like, perversely happy, right? And not happy that Daniel Bryan's career is over, because I don't wish ill on anybody, but he's had a full, complete, and a successful career. It goes without saying, right? But I thought to myself, it's like, how wrong do people get it, right? I just Googled Daniel Bryan right now. I don't know why. I think it was to see how old he was. And on the Wikipedia, it says that some consider him the greatest wrestler of all time, which is a complete farce. Like, he's not, right? But it got me thinking, right? Like, I remember the night that he debuted. It was the night that CM Punk made his in-ring debut for AEW. And in the main event that night, I believe the match was Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the world title, which means Christian Cage had debuted in AEW several months, at least, I think almost a year, before Daniel Bryan, right? And now it looks like Daniel Bryan is going to be out of the company before Christian, who is like 7 years older than him, has been there. Now, if you consider the entire career, right? Like, think about how many people someone like Christian or Edge or The Miz have lapped. Like, they have straight up lapped these motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? So far ahead of the game, they're lapping the Daniel Bryans. Like, think about it. Daniel Bryan comes to WWE, and he's The Miz's rookie, right? And, you know, people are like, Daniel Bryan's the future. Before you know it, Daniel Bryan's gone. He's like, he has his first retirement. The Miz is still there, carrying the show. Daniel Bryan comes back. He leaves again, and Miz is still there, right? And it's like, bro, like, the whole point was the rookies were the future of wrestling. But none of those motherfuckers, they're all retired, right? It's like, they're pros. You have people like R-Truth and The Miz, who are the pros of some of these jobbers, who are all retired. Like, and it's not like they're retired because, you know, they suck, although that's true for most of them, right? But you have someone like Wade Barrett. Like, you know, Wade Barrett is obviously someone that was never that big of a deal. Wade Barrett's 44, and he's retired. So, like, when he joined NXT, he was a rookie, but he was like a veteran already. Same thing with, you know, Daniel Bryan, right? This was a long time ago. NXT Season 1 was like, what, 10 years ago? Like, 12 years ago? I don't know, right? But all the pros are still there. Jericho, who is the world champion. Like, I remember one of the first NXT matches was Jericho versus Daniel Bryan for the world heavyweight title, right? And Jericho beats him with like the Lion Tamer, right? Jericho was the world heavyweight champion in WWE, the big gold belt, motherfucker. And like, during this time, think about that. During this time, we're like, in the future, Daniel Bryan, right? And it's like, in the future, Daniel Bryan will be wrestling fucking Swerve Strickland in a complete nobody cares match. And Jericho, well, Jericho, to be fair, is also in AEW, but Jericho's a pioneer in AEW. Jericho's one of the GOATs, right? The Miz is still in WWE. Like, there are people out there that are carrying the fucking sport, if you will, of wrestling. And there's a bunch of jobbers that come out of nowhere and they just say they're good, right? It's like, at this rate, The Miz is going to probably, like, you know, like, he's going to lap, like, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and these people that are even younger than him. And then, just like Christian Cage is lapping Daniel Bryan in anything. Christian Cage started in WWE earlier, right? Even though they're like, I mean, he's significantly younger, but, you know, Christian started in like the 90s. Daniel Bryan started in like 2010 or whatever, right? So like, Daniel Bryan wasn't good enough for WWE until much, much later, right? Christian started there, stayed there, went to TNA, came back, became world champion again. Now he's in AEW, and he's like probably the best wrestler they got in AEW. You know, you got a lot of different things that are happening here, and people are getting lapped. And I'm like, how fitting, right? Christian at 50 becomes the #1 contender, and it would be great. And I think, like, I mean, the smart money, in my opinion, is Christian Cage needs to beat Daniel Bryan for the world title. It's a little bit weird because Christian Cage only wrestles on, like, Collision, it feels like. So that's a little bit strange. But, like, you know, they need to have, like, the big feud with him and Edge, right? For the real title, right? And Christian needs to come out on top of that feud because Edge always comes out on top. So it's like, Christian needs to come out on top at the end of their feud. He needs to be the one that, like, to prove once and for all that everyone got it wrong. Everyone got it wrong. You can tell me Daniel Bryan's the best wrestler in the world, but nothing suggests that, right? Like, The Miz, for example, is 100 times better. And I'll just say it one more time, and that's it. The Miz, like, one of his gimmicks, like his pseudo gimmicks, became that, like, all of a sudden he started copying Daniel Bryan's moves, right? And he really showed that there's nothing technical about the yes kicks or the Buzaiku flying knee, both of which he does, right? He did the he's done the lapel lock. He's done it all, right? He's stolen Daniel Bryan's moves, and in doing so, he's also lapped this motherfucker. He has lapped him, motherfucks. Like, Daniel Bryan started his WWE career way later than The Miz. He ended his WWE career way earlier than The Miz, and he's gonna retire way earlier than The Miz. Think about that. It's like, and in what world is Daniel Bryan better? Why? Because they give him the opportunity to beat Batista at WrestleMania? Like, anyone, you could give it to anybody. You could give it to the Brooklyn Brawler, right? He didn't earn it. He's not better objectively, right? There's not one thing, and here's what I always say, right? Like, when I compare, for example, Gunther to Kozlov, right? I typically say something along the lines of, name one thing that Gunther does better than Kozlov. And thus far, I haven't heard one thing. I haven't heard one, right? He's not better on the mic because they're both shit on the mic, right? He's not better in the ring. I don't want to hear that shit. Absolutely not, he's not. Like, Kozlov had actual moves. You know, Gunther has moves like you learn like your first week in wrestling school. You know what I mean? He's a first week jobber, right? He doesn't have more presence, right? He's not bigger. He's not stronger. He can't kick his ass in real life. Kozlov's better in every possible way. You know? And it's the same thing here. It's like, name one way that Daniel Bryan is better than The Miz. I can name like 10 ways that Miz is better. Miz is better looking. He's more charismatic. He's more athletic by 100 times, right? Miz would beat his ass. Oh, Daniel Bryan studied with Randy Couture. Yeah, so did CM Punk. Got his ass whooped in like 10 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, this means fucking nothing. You know, a lot of people think, oh, I train in an MMA gym. I can out beat up 90% of the world. No, you can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't test the world, because you're going to learn a lesson real quick. You're going to go to like a bar and be like, I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Someone's going to smash your head against the bar and throw you on the ground, and you're going to be like, oh, fuck. All the money I spent was for nothing, you know? Anyways, the point is, better on the mic, more charismatic, better in the ring, in my opinion. Definitely has been part of great stories, a much better background. Like, he's better in every way, you know? And Daniel Bryan doesn't do anything better than The Miz. Daniel Bryan, like, is boring, motherfuckers. So, that being said, it's really good to see someone like Christian, basically, in my opinion, surpass Daniel Bryan in yet another, you know, factoid, another statistic, another variable. And I believe that Christian Cage is going to win the title, and that is something that I can get behind. You know what I mean? I feel like that's going to boost the ratings by a little bit, not by much, but, you know, because they're not going to, like, let him do what he wants to do, because it's like, you know, Christian's not going to be a long-term champion. But, you know, if you're going to ruin Swerve's title shot, a title run, I should say, I feel like it should be for a reason. You know? I feel like it should be like a title run that is ruined, and, you know, we get something out of this. And I have a feeling we're not going to get shit out of this. Cooks.